76 out of 750, which is 90%. It changes each year depending on the overall average. However, where I live in Australia, which has 5 universities ranked in the top 50 in the world, 4 of them only require a Gaokao score of 450 out of 750. 60%, those being UNSW, Sydney, ANU, and Monash. China's competitive education system has been described as Nizhen, which in English translates to involution. I talk more in depth about the issue in this video, so check it out later if you haven't already. But in short, the BBC summarizes it quite well. Involution originated as an anthropological term that refers to a social concept where population growth does not result in productivity or improved innovation. However, in Chinese usage, involution is better translated as one's endless pursuit of improvement due to an unwillingness to fall behind in competition. The concept of involution has become increasingly prominent in China, evidenced by the hashtags related to it garnering over 1 billion views and the term being one of China's top 10 buzzwords. Its relevance to the educational system is significant, reflecting a societal pressure where, as Professor Shang Biao of University of Oxford explains, the young continue to feel if they do not work hard or participate in competition, they will be ousted by society. But they do not see a breakthrough for themselves despite their repeated efforts. This relentless competition extends beyond the Gaokao to include achievements in the arts and sports. Students often forego other aspects of their lives in this continuous push for improvement, which can result in less well-rounded personalities compared to their American counterparts. I know this is a weird concept to understand, but there's a brilliant analogy from a Chinese TV series that really puts this into perspective.
一个剧场，大家都在看演出呢。突然，一个观众站起来了，其他观众为了能看到演出，也不得不站起来。最后，大家都从坐着看戏变成站着看了，这不是闲的吗？
还没完呢呀！有人就站上椅子了，有人把梯子给架起来了。
何苦呢？付出那么高的成本，却只能得到跟原来一样，甚至更差的体验。
关键问题是，没人敢坐下来呀。
In relation to China, the extra effort individuals exert can be likened to the front row deciding to stand up, compelling those to do the same to maintain a clear view. In a school setting, this scenario unfolds when a student or colleague puts an extra effort into a project, prompting others to increase their own effort to stay competitive. This chain reaction can lead to everyone in the environment working harder. Yet, since everyone raises their effort equally, ultimately the relative standing of each person remains unchanged. This phenomenon, often referred to as effort inflation, essentially resets everyone to the baseline, leaving everyone back at square one, despite having to work so much harder. Additionally, imagine your entire family on your back, keeping track of everything you do. That's exactly how those born before the end of China's one-child policy in 2015 feel. These students face even greater pressure since their entire families, from grandparents to parents, invest their hopes and resources in the success of one single child. This amplifies the effects of involution, as each family strives to ensure their child excels above others. Amidst this intense pressure, there's been a growing resistance, notably known as the Tangping or lying flat movement, which advocates for opting out of these relentless competitions. After all, why bother when, regardless of how hard you work, you're still just average? From the same BBC article, Professor Shang describes lying flat as young people's decision to give up meaningless competitions. Despite its appeal, many young people still view lying flat as unfeasible in China, fearing it could disadvantage them and their families economically. Even as As I'm filming this, the current viral trend for college students in China is the pretend to be like a bird meme, where college students pretend to be like a bird, citing that they wish to be like birds since being a student is too exhausting.
无主化身一只固执的鸟，逆着狂风一直飞到底。
Consequently, studying abroad has become an attractive alternative for many, offering access to a greater number of internationally recognized universities and perceived lower competition. You often see online of China getting memed on for its lack of free speech, such as jokes about the CCP, the social credit system, and copy-pasters about the Tiananmen Square massacre. So it should come as no surprise that it is a common belief among Chinese parents and students that Western education, known for its non-standardized and personalized classes, enhances creativity and freedom of thought. This perspective contrasts sharply with the notion that Chinese education rigidly demands objective answers, while Western schools support diverse viewpoints. However, based on discussions with friends who are international students with experience in both the Australian and Chinese educational systems, I believe this contrast is overly simplified. In subjects like math and science, the answers must be objective, where deviations from established principles are not acceptable in either educational context. On the other hand, in the humanities and the arts, teachers in both China and Australia acknowledge the validity of various interpretations and do not confine students to a single perspective. Some of my peers even suggested that certain professors at the University of Melbourne, where I go to, advocate more strongly for a left-wing agenda than those in China. Studies on educational conformity in the US, including research by Sugarman, Saldana, and Delgado, show that schools based on the Western education system, despite preaching individuality, often enforce conformity which can suppress creativity. The educational system's goal to cultivate responsible citizens leads to the enforcement of certain standards, fostering a culture where respect for authority trumps individual creativity. Thus, the portrayal of Western schools as havens for creative freedom does not actually reflect the research findings. The emphasis on critical thinking is often cited as a key advantage of the American education system, attracting many Chinese students. However, it is important to challenge some assumptions held by these Chinese parents and students. Possibly influenced by the grass is greener syndrome, Chinese education agencies, which profit from helping students apply to Western schools and prepare for entrance exams, may exaggerate the benefits of the Western education. They often describe China's educational approach as focused on rote memorization and test-oriented learning, which they claim stifles critical thinking. To develop critical thinking, they argue parents should send their children to the US, where methods like the Harkness table, a round table that facilitates discussion, which are used in many boarding schools, supposedly enhance critical thinking through open dialogue. However, the effectiveness of discussion-based learning in fostering critical thinking is debatable. Not all students participate actively in discussions, meaning the benefits are not universally experienced. Studies show some students prefer to avoid these discussions, seeing them as unproductive, and believe they could learn more efficiently through traditional lectures. Therefore, discussion-based education may only benefit those who are already inclined towards debate and public speaking, while leaving others, especially those unfamiliar or unsuited to this style of learning, at a disadvantage. This suggests that the supposed superiority of the American approach in cultivating critical thinking might not be as robust as often portrayed. Despite the challenges in the Western education system, many Chinese parents continue to send their children to the US, drawn by the potential benefits of having their children study abroad. The perceived superiority of American schools in providing physical and creative outlets, along with a curriculum that appears to better prepare students for the job market, remains a significant factor in their decision. However, as with any choice, it's vital for parents to consider the full picture and weigh the pros and cons of both educational systems before making such an important decision. The other reason why Western universities are perceived as being superior to schools in China is due to the fact that so many rank higher. Thus, many parents are inclined to send their children abroad simply out of vanity as a way to flex on other Chinese parents, as showing off your child's achievements and education is very common in Asian culture.
다음에는 우리가 쏘자고. 우리 셀이 방학 때 잠깐 들어왔다 가라 그래. 하버드생 차세리 환영 파티. 얼마나 명분이 좋아.
저렇게도 자랑이 하고 싶을까?
Additionally, it is also a way to show off wealth, as most universities require international students to pay their full tuition upfront. So now you've finally made it to the West. Your parents worked overtime for an entire year saving money. Your grandparents even pitched in, but now you're here. You paid off your tuition for the year and you have just enough rent money to cover you for the first 2 months. You need to figure out how to get a job, so you join the Chinese club at the university, hoping to find some advice. But to your surprise, none of these people work, and they all seem to be wearing designer brands and driving sports cars. What's most likely happening is something called smurfing. This is not widely covered or spoken about, as it is almost viewed as taboo. If you play video games, you might be familiar with the term of being really high level but purposely playing in a lower rank to beat weak players. And in the world of banking, the idea of it is kind of the same. Smurfing refers to splitting large sums of money into smaller, more concealable amounts. A lot of rich businessmen in China face a major issue once they have made their millions, if not billions. And that is not wanting to live in China, yet being stuck there and unable to move their wealth out of the country. The two issues preventing them from doing so is, 1, there is a limit of only being able to move the equivalent of 50,000 USD a year out of China. And 2, even if legal, moving so much money into an offshore account under your own name inevitably raises a lot of suspicion with the Chinese government. And thus, especially for the ultra wealthy in China, if there is any reason for a parent to send their child abroad that's more major than to get a degree from a world-renowned university, it would be this. You often see these students receiving large amounts of money into their bank account from their parents. So you might be wondering, how do they send more than $50,000 a year then? Well, this is where the concept of smurfing comes in. These rich Chinese parents will recruit people, sometimes even with the same last name to avoid further suspicion, who haven't used their legitimate transfer quotas of 50,000 and give them the money, telling them that they can keep a portion of it so long as they transfer the rest overseas to their child. This is also why many of these international students will have up to 10 to 20 bank accounts open at any given time. These are the stereotypical international students in their 20s who are often seen wearing designer clothing head to toe and drive sports cars and live lavish lifestyles. In China, there's a specific term for them, known as 富二代, meaning rich second generation. As going to a university that ranks highly is not their main priority, you'll often find more of them at universities which are not ranked highly in the world, and some will even opt into taking courses which are almost all online, just to fulfill their student visa obligations. Whilst writing the script for this video, I actually reconnected with a uni friend who happens to be a 富二代, and essentially her parents' plan is for her to graduate university and become a permanent resident. And once the money is moved out of China, her parents intend to immigrate to Australia using the subclass 103 parent visa, which allows immigration if your child is a permanent resident or citizen. And this leads me directly to some of the problems Chinese international students face. According to Tweed and Lehman's Learning Considered Within a Cultural Context, Western educational methods often embrace a Socratic approach, which is characterized by active questioning, the expression of personal hypotheses, and the preference of self-directed tasks. This educational style encourages students to share their thoughts and learn from peer interactions. However, research highlights that this is a significant challenge for Chinese international students, particularly when discussions involve cultural contexts unfamiliar to them. In Chinese culture, voicing personal opinions is often seen as impolite, making it difficult for Chinese students to adapt the expressive and interactive American classroom. This cultural difference can hinder their participation, which is problematic since classroom participation often contributes significantly to their grades. Furthermore, the pressure to succeed in a foreign educational setting can be overwhelming, sometimes leading to academic dishonesty among Chinese students. This prevalence of cheating can result in stereotyping by teachers and peers, which unfairly affects those who do not engage in such practices. Compounding these challenges is the relatively recent development of mental health support within Chinese culture, rather lack thereof, where these students may not readily seek out or have access to needed psychological resources. This deficiency of support can leave both the cheating students and those unjustly stereotyped without adequate help, exacerbating their difficulties in navigating the academic and social landscapes of Western universities. Chinese students face significant challenges with social and cultural integration when they study in the West. The differences between Chinese and Western cultural norms are well documented, and many Chinese students experience a substantial cultural shock upon their arrival. They might struggle with concepts such as respecting other people's privacy, or adapting the individualistic ethos of the American society, having come from a more collectivistic background. These adjustments can negatively impact their overall happiness and create a challenging academic and social environment. To illustrate this, I want to use a personal experience of something I witnessed, which I think highlights the depth of cultural shock encountered by these Chinese students. In China, where gender roles are strictly defined as either male or female, the concept of LGBTQ is not familiar or accepted as it is in Australia. However, over here, particularly in a progressive school like the University of Melbourne, issues of gender and sexuality are commonly discussed and embraced among young people. A Chinese friend of mine who had just arrived in Australia for less than a month and unfamiliar with these cultural norms made several jokes about people being gay, which is more socially acceptable in China. Although not intended to harm, these remarks were perceived as insensitive by my classmates, and on this occasion his joke was overheard by a gay student who reacted angrily and told him to go back to where he came from, leaving my friend confused and upset. After explaining to him the impact of his words, he began to understand the sensitivity of these issues. Unfortunately, this cultural divergence often results in local students distancing themselves from their Chinese counterparts. Such segregation exacerbates cultural misunderstandings as it reduces the opportunities for Chinese students to interact with locals. The lack of interaction can lead to a formation of cultural cliques where Chinese students primarily associate with each other rather than integrating more broadly with the student body. This segregation creates a cycle where the necessary engagement that could help overcome these cultural barriers are diminished, perpetuating isolation and misunderstanding between the groups. The existence of separate Chinese social media platforms worsens the issue, as it encourages students to primarily socialize amongst themselves. Research by Liu, Vogel, and McLeod underscores the importance of social support and connectedness. While bonding with like-minded peers from the same cultural background can provide immediate social comfort, it can also lead to a form of self-imposed isolation. Such isolation not only restricts their social interactions, but also limits their overall learning experience in a diverse educational setting. The problem intensifies in schools with few Chinese students, as the limited number can lead to even greater feelings of exclusion in a narrower social circle that doesn't include any students of other ethnicities. Although some Chinese students do manage to step out of their comfort zones and ultimately integrate more broadly, this is not the norm. The resulting lack of interaction with the diverse student body means missing out on the richer, more inclusive experiences that are critical to the educational and personal development expected from studying abroad. But this often leads to another problem. Non-wealthy international students can feel pressured to fit in with other Chinese international students who are rich.
All right, so we got Alien Romulus, Inside Out 2, Deadpool Wolverine. Great. They just released Agatha All Along, which is shaping up to be really bad, just like The Acolyte. This is one of the ones I've been wondering about.
in an incredibly big way. So for those who are thinking that he might not have that much screen time or might not be that important because he's supposedly a congressman right now, don't worry, he plays a huge role. And he also talks about the state of Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige and the criticism that Marvel has been getting lately. And today we have some really exciting updates about the Thunderbolts. If you are excited about this movie, this will get you even more excited. As we have updates about test screenings that have already happened for the movie, David Harbour, who plays Red Guardian, gives us an update, and Sebastian Stan, who of course plays Bucky, recently did an interview with Variety where he talked about the Thunderbolts, gave us a little bit more information about how he is involved with the Thunderbolts, and as it turns out, he's involved in an incredibly big way. So for those who are thinking that he might not have that much screen time or might not be that important because he's supposedly a congressman right now, don't worry, he plays a huge role. And he also talks about the state with the Thunderbolts, where he talked about the Thunderbolts, gave us a little bit more about test screenings that have already happened for the movie. David Harbour, who plays Red Guardian, gives us an update, and Sebastian Stan, who of course plays Bucky, recently did an interview with Variety where he talked about the Thunderbolts, gave us a little bit more information about how he is involved with the Thunderbolts, and as it turns out, he's involved in an incredibly big way. So for those who are thinking that he might not have that much screen time or might not be that important because he's supposedly a congressman right now, don't worry, he plays a huge role. And he also talks about the state of Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige and the criticism that Marvel has been getting lately. And lately, we've been hearing a lot about Marvel Studios kind of shifting around Phase 6, canceling shows, possibly canceling some movies, or at least postponing them until after the Multiverse Saga. But today we get some really good news about the Thunderbolts all around and about Kevin Feige and Marvel. Now, a lot of people do think that this film, The Thunderbolts, does bring a lot of risk to Marvel Studios. However, I think Marvel is pretty used to this, doing...
Well, as long as they do it right, ain't no risk at all. Just money on top of money. But Marvel knows that. Disney knows that. If they do it right, it's a win. It's not about the quantity. It's the quality. As long as you're bringing out a lot of quality, or even quality here and there with no garbage in the middle, you're going to do fine. Just can't inject the garbage.
Team up movies. And granted, yes, these aren't your normal Marvel characters. They're not superheroes.
Doesn't matter. The Guardians of the Galaxy worked. Nobody knew what the hell that was. Went to see it on a whim because it was Marvel riding high. And I was like, oh, I like this. Give me more.
Many of them have been actual villains in the MCU, but I do think that the characters, at least most of them to most people, are very interesting. Yelena Belova, Red Guardian, Bucky, U.S. Agent John Walker, and it looks like we have upgraded versions of Taskmaster and Ghost. And I personally really like a gritty type of movie with not so good people. I actually really do like this team, but David Harbour does have a message to people. If you are kind of
Did they put that? I didn't know. Did they put that fake Taskmaster in it? I didn't know that.
Fence about the Thunderbolts, and this is where we also go into the test screenings that recently happened. In an interview with comicbook.com speaking about the Marvel critique and the fact that a lot of people view the Thunderbolts as a risk, he said this, and again this is David Harbour, Red Guardian. He said, making a movie, you can't really look outside for critiques because everybody sees the poster and they have an opinion. You're like, just watch the 2-hour movie, and if you still hate it, great. Love it, great. But, like, you've got to give us a chance. I think all the speculation and the...
Oh, we've been giving Marvel and Disney a chance. We've been giving them a chance. So, enough of this. Oh, just take a look at it. Because we already know what they've been doing. So, to make sure that they keep doing right, we should be speculating. We should wonder. We can't fully trust Disney or Marvel yet. I do not trust Disney or Marvel yet. Like I used to. You know what I'm saying? Before the Captain Marvel days. And then they started to go down and down. No. When they're consistent, I'll be consistent and say, yeah, let's give it a shot.
The world is like my fantasies about dying or what? I mean, it's like you can fantasize about horrific things or whatever until you actually see the thing. Side note, it seems like he kind of confirmed the movie is basically a 2-hour film, so it doesn't look like we're going to have, say, a 2-hour and 30-minute movie, but at least it's going to be, at the very least, 2 hours. I'm sure he's just speaking.
And the dude in the middle, he stays looking like a cosplay version of Captain America. I hope they really do something with him, though. You know, Red Guardian, I liked him, but he was kind of a hokey comedy character. You know what I mean? So we'll see. Black Widow's sister, she's all right to me. It's like I don't really not like her or like her. She's just okay to me. Love Bucky. To hell with fake Taskmaster. Very interested in the Red Hulk. Who else? There's like another one, right?
Generally here, but I'm sure he knows how long the movie actually is. But keep in mind that could change as they continue to edit it, especially after the test screenings. They do typically go back and edit a few things that they think could be better based on what people do say about it. But here's what he has to say about the test screenings.
Undercover P. Diddy oiling people up. An event.
Messing up before Corona. Young hanging out the Bentley while I'm swinging around the corner. Paper tag, this is not a loaner. This one for the owners. This ain't for the leases. Time for loafers, you can never tie my sneakers. Put her on the blacklist. I'm like, bye, Felicia. I be this like a fresh shit. New bands when we hit.
Is AI ready to take over mankind yet? Today we invest. What the? As AI is going. How far AI has come. Maybe you were intelligent enough to realize this video so far is made entirely by AI. No freaking way. I just blew your mind. No freaking way. By AI. No freaking way. Wait, I just blew your minds! Can you believe it? Oh, yeah.
We'll see each other again soon. Well, it's been fun. I'm very happy
A message saying, which in turn drives in, and press F to focus in on the location, select the group, and if you go to if you've got a snap tool, that does exactly the same thing. So now it's snapped, we just delete that constraint because it's in the correct place. Okay, so now our group 1 and current hand position, by doing exactly the same thing, so constraint parent, you see that locator is now snapped to where this hand position needs to be, and again we'll just delete that. Okay, so for this I'm going to position to our locator position to our current hand position by doing exactly the same thing, so constraint parent, you see that locator is now snapped to where this hand position needs to be, and again we'll just delete that. Okay, so for this I'm going to be using FK. It's really up to you on personal preference. If you're same snapped, we just delete that constraint. If you've got a snap tool, that does exactly the same thing. So now it's snapped, we just delete that. If you've got a snap tool, snap animation controlled, and then the group, pressing Control to select the group. And if you go to your animation controls and go to constraint, when doing a strike on two hands, it doesn't necessarily lock to what this hand is doing. You're going to need to modify it throughout the entire animation to make it look natural. So I'm going to take you through how I set. It's always a good idea to position everything how you want it beforehand in a typical base pose, because this will help you. So the first thing we're going to do is create a logo and a little bit, and press F to focus in on the above the locator. Okay, so these are the two groups that are going to do the work. Group control and your animation controls, and go to constrain parent options and take maintain offset off and add, and go to constrain parent options and take maintain offset off and add. And basically what this do, it will snap to the exact pivot point of that. If you've got a snap tool, that does exactly the same thing. So now it's snapped, we just delete that constraint because it's in the correct place. Okay, so now our group 1 and locator have exactly the same world space position and pivot point as the sword. So now we just need to move our locator position to our position and have exactly the same world space position the constraints. So you go up to create locator. The thing we're going to do is, and what position to do, because this will help you position everything in the, and press Control G, okay, the work, and then the group, your animate options. See all this, that does exactly. So now it's snapped. It's in the correct place. Okay, so now our group 1 and locator have exactly the same world space position and pivot point as the sword. So now we just need to move our locator position to our current hand position by doing exactly the same thing. So constraint parent, you see that locator is now snapped to where this hand position needs to be, and again we'll just delete that. Okay, so for this I'm going to be using FK. It's really up to you to use FK, but use the prop. Okay, so this hand now constrain parent, and let's just check that is correct. Yep, so you see we are now controlling this bottom locator, which is going to be our keyable control. So now what we need to do is constrain these two again, constrain parent, and this should work. There we go. Now the thing is, as soon as you put a key on this controller, it's going to mess everything up. So I suggest that you just select it, go down to your display layers, create a new layer, and just hide that. And then as soon as so you see the sword prop, drive the group, so constrain parent, and you might as well put maintain a prop, drive the group. So you see we are now controlling this bottom locator, which is going to be our keyable control. And let's just check that is correct. Yep, so you see we are now controlling this bottom locator, which is going to be our keyable control. Is have the sword prop, drive the group to you, but the sword prop, this hand now controls the sword prop. So now what we're going to do is have the sword prop, drive the group, so constrain parent, and let's just check that is correct. Yep, so you see we are now to the hand, drive the group. You see we are now controlling this bottom locator, which is going to be our keyable control. So now what we need to do is constrain these two again, constrain parent, and this should work. There we go. Now the thing is constrain these two again, constrain parent. So now what we need to do is constrain these two. So now what we need to do is constrain these two again, constrain parent, and this should work. There we go. Now the thing is, as soon as you put a key on this,
today when you click controller in the parent constraint, you have one value for your IK and one value for your FK. So now they are sharing 50% FK. Now everything is follow. Of course, you need to change back, go down a bit more. Okay, so I cannot use the red color to animate because over here the value is blue color, which means is both hand together, so that when I move my body, the other hand should follow. If I'm going to constrain this hand to the sword, this value will turn blue color like the sword. Okay, so we need to constrain the one above this controller. Click the hand controller, press F. Okay, there is another group here. That is the place where we need to constrain the sword. We will use this group to constrain together with the hand. Okay, so if this hand move, this hand will follow. So this wrist will be the master controller. We will use this hand first, followed by second parent. Same thing, maintain offset and apply. Okay, now we move the body. Okay, both sword and hand will move at the same time. Okay, because this sword is in FK. If you overstretch, this hand is not able to stretch. Try not to overstretch this character. Your rig should be fine. Have a very small secondary action, then you touch the other hand. Make sure the value, okay, don't constrain this hand. Make sure the value is open. open. I'll move on to create our second pose.
Parent constraints. Can't we just live without them? Greeting. Set up this particular constraint. This is somewhat how we did it on Ninja Turtles. Utilize to show you what's happening is that first off, the staff is set up to where it's centered pivot. You want to double check that. Left constraint. I'm just going to put left hand constraint. The big thing I'm going to be concerned about are these be the new movers. These constraints are moving with what I like to do to avoid. Now with that all fixed up, now the left hand constraint is moving the control as well as the constraint itself. So now with this selected, what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be making our new left and right hand controls with the new locators that we've set up. And we're going to do the same thing with our right IK hand as well too. So from there, we're going to grab our right hand control, grab our right hand IK, do the same thing, which is G, which is parent and constraining everything there, and then double checking always that things are working fine, which they seem to be doing good too. Now, in order to kind of clean this up because things are getting a little too busy, what I do is I kind of take the IKs that are not going to be moving anymore, and obviously they have a few attributes that we're going to be needing to do in the future. And what I like to do just on both of them to make sure I don't mess up anything is I'll just right click and lock these guys. Make sure those are locked. And then sometimes what I'll do is I'll put these guys on a new layer. I'll just hide them so that way I see the new locator controls. And what I'll do is I'll rename this layer, maybe just like no touchy. So good. So far, so good. Helping me organize what I'm doing. For the left-hand constraint, I'm just going to be making left constraint, labeling that yellow. And then the same thing with the right constraint. Right constraint. And also here too, I could also make the left control. Let's just put left hand for short. Right hand as well. So R hand. Cool. So now that I got both these set up, it'll be easy to work with what I'm doing. And also just for good measure, I'm just going to grab the staff and make this one a selection as well too. Let me put this in the blue. Great. All right, now the official constraint itself, ass tool list. Do is utilize what we have here, select sets down in the Anibot tool list. And this will be good for kind of helping. Cool. So now after the hands will begin. I want to make sure everything is lined up specific. That's going to align the hand, show the extent of just middle drag the control into the constraint. Constrain, parent, left ends. Make sure maintain offset is set. And then we're going to hit add. And by doing that, we now
This software is giving me a fucking headache. Damn it.
Press insert again. The HIK editor, course editor jumps back and forth when the fingers. Dual quaternion. Except now my fingers don't work. I'm going to add Ogre finger weights to the body weights folder. If you found this tutorial and now your character is ready for animation. Note that you can use this exact same technique to do the toes as well. Remember, if you found this this tutorial useful,
Ding.
Fuck this game we call Maya. Oh my god. I just need to learn how to retarget on Blender. Oh, that's so cool. Nice, nice, nice. I was able to get some good ground covered. Nice, nice. Okay, this is good, this is good. Follow. What it is. This guy. Parent. This. Parent. Hurry!
Ding.
Oh. That's cool.
Ding.
Oh man. That's cool. Finally. A little funky, but you know, can't ask for everything. Hmm.
So to start things off, I want to say that all three weapons feel real good, and they are absolutely solid additions to the game. One in particular is definitely standing out. I'll get to that later. But getting back on the feeling good part, this to me is what made me fall in love with the finals gunplay in the first place. It was not so much about the weapon doing a lot of damage or having the lowest TTK, but rather whether or not a weapon feels good or satisfying when used, which plays a much bigger role, and this is perfectly illustrated in the video ABOP just released, which is going to be more and more relevant when more and more weapons become irrelevant, especially with the addition of scopes. Now, I'm certainly not saying it's a bad thing that they were added. When direct competitors to these potentially irrelevant weapons are excelling in multiple areas, it will soon make said weapon become irrelevant. So please watch the video, I highly recommend it. He obviously put a lot of work into it and doesn't get nearly enough recognition. Now with that being said, the new weapons are a fantastic step in the right direction. When Season 4 releases and the player base starts using them, allowing the devs to gather the data that they need and how they compare to current weapons, I'm sure they'll adjust the potency of these weapons to fit more in line with the rest. Hopefully though, they will find a way without affecting the feel of the weapon, because in that department they nailed it. They absolutely nailed it. Now, let me give you my first impressions for the 3 brand new weapons in Season 4. Also, before I get started, if you found this video informative, please smash that like button. Also, subscribe for all things to finals. Thanks, you guys are awesome. Let's start with the heavy 50 caliber akimbo handguns, or should I say, hand cannons. Because when you start hitting with these things, oh my god, it feels so satisfying.